You're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context, surviving on food. And what that means is ultimately you're a system of energy. Or you can just understand that the way your nervous system works is the reason that your brain can conceptualize the words that I'm saying right now is because there are electromagnetic pulses going through your brain. The synapses firing in your brain, that's electricity. So no matter how we get there from a really scientific or a really spiritual perspective, you are a system of energy.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. Well, I know it's not officially fall, but Labor Day has passed, which means it's kind of back to school mentality. I don't know, no matter how old you are, I feel like September post Labor Day brings the back to school vibes. And it's gear up to focus till holidays, right? And for many of you, I think that also means refocusing on health goals. And sure, that might look like focusing on veggies or carving out time for the grocery store, changing up your activity, things of that sort. This week's guest, though, recommends that we also explore what's happening between our ears. Our thoughts, the conversations we have with ourselves, is really what we're going to focus on and talk about today. And more than that, how that translates into what we're experiencing in our body physically. Let me introduce you to our guest. She is founder of Out of the Cave, LLC, where she combines her comprehensive expertise as a licensed social worker, integrative nutrition health coach, certified personal trainer, and registered yoga teacher to guide emotional eaters toward physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and healing. Maintaining a 150-pound weight loss for more than a decade by healing her relationship with food through emotional healing, somatic experiencing, mindset shifts, and more, she discovered that her lifelong struggle with morbid obesity and disordered eating, in quotes, right, were symptoms of unprocessed trauma and emotional stress. This realization fueled her passion for helping others navigate similar challenges with a heart-centered, trauma-informed approach. Her strengths-based philosophy is rooted in the belief that using food to cope is valid. A valid method of managing stress, and it is possible to heal from the inside out. Driven to make her work accessible to all, she hosts the Out of the Cave podcast, where she shares powerful client stories and expert insights to inspire global transformation. Without further ado, I give you Lisa Schlosberg.
Hello. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited. Fellow Michigan alum. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
And I'm thrilled you're here. This is not our first conversation. We also had an awesome conversation for Out of the Cave.
Yes.
So whenever you're done listening here, go to Out of the Cave podcast, listen there too. You'll see these. We're going to release very close to each other. So it will be there when you go to listen. So Lisa, I'm so glad you're here. Today, we will start with your story as the jumping off point for the rest of our conversation. We just have one more bit of housekeeping here.
Sure.
So I want to know, friends, do you have access to the Happy Healthy Hub? If not, you want to be a member. So you get a recipe every week delivered to your inbox. You get curated articles and additional discounts from me and our partners. You get interview episodes like this one in full video, including behind the scenes content. A community with the ability to post and comment on others' posts, plus access to the 24/7 AMA or Ask Me Anything to target your specific questions or challenges. You can upvote other people's questions, see past Q&As, all the good things. All of this is yours for just $12 a month, or pay the whole year and save over 15%. So your recipe this week for our Happy Healthy Hub members is for 20-minute turkey and peppers. For real, start to finish, 20 minutes. It's hard. I live in New York City, and it is hard to get takeout that fast, right? So this is the perfect recipe for any day of the week, or frankly, even any time of day when you need something fast and delicious. So if you want this recipe If you want articles delivered to your inbox, this episode in full video, access to the community chat, and the 24/7 Ask Me Anything, go to asaladwithasideofries.com/membership. From there, you click subscribe now, follow the prompts. It's like 60 seconds or less for you to create your login, and then you'll have access to all of the benefits. Remember, it's asaladwithasideofries.com/membership. Of course, I say it every time, it's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, you're supporting this podcast and this community so we can continue to do this for you. 6 years and counting. Hard to believe. All right, friends, on top of this week's episode in full video, the behind-the-scenes pieces included there, your 24/7 Ask Me Anything, and the community chat, and all the things, you get this week's recipe for the 20-minute turkey and peppers. All right. I know, so many things.
Wow.
I know. And it's only $12 a month.
Great. Love it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks. All right, Lisa, all about you. So we heard a little bit of your story in your bio, and when you and I spoke before, we talked about your story growing up being an overweight child, and you really lost weight in college. But one extreme became another extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And now you help other people kind of figure all this out. So will you help us for the moment understand the connection that you learned between the body and mind? And then obviously we'll dig deeper.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you already summed up a lot of it.
I know.
That I really appreciate because it can take me quite a bit of time to get through all of that. So I was really overweight as a child. And when I went to Michigan, it was my sophomore year, I decided to finally take things into my own hands and do the weight loss thing. So I started with Jenny Craig. And the long story short is that I lost 150 pounds when I was in college. And then when I found myself after my weight loss, it was a very bittersweet and very confusing time because I had lost all this weight, which was great and the goal. But by the end of my weight loss, I was struggling both physically and emotionally. And I noticed things like my hair was falling out and I was freezing all the time and I lost my period and I was pretty miserable. And I remember I couldn't study for finals because I couldn't remember anything and I couldn't sleep and I couldn't poop. I just felt like my body wasn't working and I didn't know why, because everyone always told me, including and especially all of my doctors, that I just had to eat less and exercise more. And so I thought at this time, well, that's what I did. I did exactly what everyone told me to do. Why do I feel so bad? And so it wasn't until I spoke to my mom's friend, who is a nutritionist, who explained to me that I was under eating and over exercising, which was mind-blowing information. I didn't know there was such a thing as under eating. No one ever taught me about that. And so what I had to do was start eating a little bit more and exercising a little bit less, which again was just absolutely shocking information to receive. And so when I started doing that, then I noticed that I was like completely out of control. I was completely out of control emotionally. I was crying all the time. What I experienced was very similar to what a lot of recovering addicts experience when they check themselves into rehab. Like, food was my drug of choice growing up, and then I had to kind of thaw out, and that's what was happening. Without using food and eating to stuff down all the feelings, or dieting and over-exercising to distract from all of the feelings, I was like an emotional disaster. And that was very confusing and really tricky to navigate. But I also felt completely out of control around food. I was overeating and then undereating and then overeating and undereating and doing the whole yo-yo dieting thing. And it just felt like everything was uncontrollable and completely unmanageable. And I was so confused because I remember thinking, I did everything right. I did everything everyone told me to do. How did I end up here?
And also, not to interrupt you, but not only did you do everything everyone told you to do, it quote unquote worked.
Yeah.
The scale changed.
Oh, it did. Yes. So again, it was a really confusing time because there was this really dual experience of feeling so great and accomplished. And also I was the most, I don't even want to say the healthiest because it wasn't healthy, but I was fit, Like I could walk up a flight of stairs. I could actually run. I could move my body without struggling. Like there were a lot of really beautiful things that came from not being over 300 pounds at 18 years old. Like that felt really good. And it also felt really bad. And it was really tricky to figure out what was going on there. And so through that experience of starting to eat a little bit more and exercise a little bit less, again, long story short, I started doing a lot of research because I was the kind of person that was like, I need to know what's going on here. I want to know the studies. I want to know like who out there has lost a significant amount of weight and kept it off, and how are they doing it, and what is going on here. And I dove really deep into ultimately research, and I started watching all these documentaries, and I started looking up everything I could about weight and weight loss. And that is where I found the ACE study. So when I stumbled upon the ACE study, which is the Adverse Childhood Experience study, this was probably like 12 or 13 years ago. And the ACE study, for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, it was a study of 17,000 adults in the United States. And what they saw across the board is ultimately, again, long story short, they would screen people for big T traumas. So things like being abused or neglected, a parent dying or being imprisoned, all of those things that would happen in the home. And they would screen adults. And what they found across the board is that adverse childhood experiences are connected to 9 out of the 10 leading causes of death. And ultimately, what this showed us was that a lot of the things that we consider as physical issues, everything from heart attacks to stroke to cancer to addiction and suicidality, are actually connected to adverse childhood experiences and what happens in our home environment as we're growing up. So all of this to say, I stumbled upon the ACE study, and this was the thing that kind of tipped me off. Because what it suggested, and this had a huge impact, especially on addiction treatment, was instead of asking the question, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just stop drinking alcohol? Why can't you just stop smoking cigarettes? Why can't you just? The question really is, what happened to you? What happened to you that this became your way of coping? What happened to you that this is how you find a source of safety and comfort? And it led me to discovering that all of this started with food and eating and weight and obesity. And so I started applying this to myself, and I started thinking, well, what happened to me? What happened to me that food and eating could have been a coping mechanism? Was this a response to stress and trauma as a child? And then I started putting the dots together. And that was what really opened my eyes to, back to your original question, how did I learn and discover ultimately the mind-body connection? It started with all of that. And so then I started kind of applying everything that I was learning in my own research about how diets don't work, and you can't just restrict food and think that that's going to be a sustainable way of living. And I started focusing on my health holistically instead of just my weight. I started seeing myself as a complex, multidimensional, emotional human being rather than just a body. And I started learning how to really feel and express my emotions rather than eat them or starve myself because of them. And that is how I've maintained a weight loss for over a decade now. So that's the long story short of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And because of that experience and all of your research, right? Like I'll just repeat for everybody, like you became a social worker, a personal trainer, really digging into a lot of this from a lot of different angles, right? So what I'm hearing from you, right? And as we talk about the mind-body connection and its relationship to food, is that, well, maybe we start with the mind-body connection, right? So if we start with the mind-body connection, what we've learned from your story is that not feeling the emotions or trying to cope without tools starts to show up in the body, right? There's the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and all those things. But how do you describe the mind-body connection in a way for everyone to understand? Maybe they've never even connected these dots or experienced it for themselves.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I like to consider is just very simply, if I ask you the question, how do you feel emotionally? when you get on the scale? Or how do you feel emotionally when you see your body in the mirror? Or how do you feel emotionally when you show up at an all-you-can-eat buffet? How do you feel emotionally when you gain 10 pounds? And these are some prompts that can support people in seeing, oh, how do I feel emotionally when I gain 10 pounds? Well, I feel this, and this. These are all emotions.
Well, actually, can I pause you there?
Yeah.
Because what are examples of those emotions? Because I do think we've talked about this before, right? And there's a book I recommend to everybody, Permission to Feel, that gives us a lexicon for emotions.
Yeah.
But I think we're so trained to function out of logic versus emotion that I don't know. I've had it with people who they say, I don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
I look in the mirror, I maybe feel like a failure, but failure isn't an emotion.
Right. Like a failure is not an emotion. So my number one tool for people in this area is the feelings wheel. So if you are struggling with this and you want to expand your emotional vocabulary, which will really support you in this kind of work, feelingswheel.com, and you can check it out. So it's different for everyone, because if I'm working with someone who has struggled to put weight on and they gain weight, they're going to be excited. They're going to be grateful. But if I'm working with someone who's trying to lose weight and they gain weight, they're going to be potentially angry, ashamed, upset, disappointed, defeated, frustrated, anxious. It could be all sorts of things. But that's why I love using the feelings wheel with people, because it's like, you tell me what resonates. And on top of that, especially if language or vocabulary can feel kind of inaccessible, I do like to get a sense of, like, if someone said to me, I feel like a failure, okay, how do you experience that? And what does that mean to you? And for some people, that could be like, oh, I just feel like this really heavy, like, pit in my belly. And it's like, okay, you're connecting to the energy of the emotion, even if you don't know exactly how to label it. And that can be a really good start. Or sometimes people, like, I'm a very visual person, especially when it comes to emotions or how I experience things. And so sometimes, people will be like, oh, I feel so, like, crushed. And it's like, okay, we have a sense of the energy of how you're experiencing that. And that also is a really good start. So the point is, if I say to you, how do you feel when you gain weight? And you say to me, I feel really upset. We're talking about the mind-body connection, because you're talking about something that happened in your body and you're talking about how you feel in that experience. There's a connection. So there's a million ways that the mind-body connection shows up. But for people who are like, wait, I don't even know how I experience that. Like, what does that even mean? The point is, when I ask you these questions, most people, if you're writing it down, you'll see that you are on like a roller coaster of emotions, all related to things that go on in your body. But most of us, we like get on the scale, we do the scale thing, or we eat, and we're not connected to how many emotions are actually coming up around it. And that's daily for all of us. So that's kind of like in brief. But what I do think is really important, because we're talking about it on this podcast, is the mind-body connection around food and eating specifically. And what I do like to teach people is there are 4 happy chemicals. There are 4 neurotransmitters in the brain that are released that make you feel good. So there's dopamine, there's serotonin, there's oxytocin, and there's endorphins. And all 4 of them have a little bit of a different job and they feel a little bit different, but they all make you feel some sort of good. The important thing about this is that 2 of the 4 of the happiness cocktail chemicals, is what they would be referred to, are released in your brain every single time you eat food. So this is important, because if you identify as a stress eater or an emotional eater, this is where I like to say, congratulations, you are a human being. You are designed. You are chemically, neurobiologically designed to have that kind of reaction, because food and eating, and this is what I find fascinating about it, food and eating, now we're talking about, we have the substance, which is food, and we also have the behavior, which is eating. So some addictions are just the substance, right? Which is more like drugs and alcohol. There are some addictions that are more behavioral, like gambling and sex. But we're talking about our relationship with food that is both the substance and the behavior. So some people, and I'm not saying food is an addiction, but it works differently for everyone. And some people feel more addictive around certain foods. Some people feel more addictive around certain behaviors, eating, overeating, mindless eating, stress eating, overeat, compulsive eating, restrictive eating, chronic dieting, whatever the behavior is, right? Everyone's got their own kind of flavor of how it can show up for them. But the point is, every single time you eat food, 2 of the 4 happy chemicals are released in your brain. And what that means is it can either bring your stress down or bring your mood up, or both. And this is how other addictions work. So we have to know, because there's been the cultural message that if you're an emotional eater or you eat food to cope with your emotions, that something's wrong with you, or you're bad, or you're broken, or you need more willpower. And that's just not it. That's just not how the science works. And I always like to tell people the same reason that eating food feels good is the same reason that sex feels good. We are designed to procreate. We are designed to eat food to keep us alive. And so if we don't have that chemical reaction of making us feel good when we eat, we will not survive. So we are emotional eaters. Like, congratulations, you're human if you find yourself an emotional eater. And I think that's particularly relevant to a conversation about food and eating and emotions.
Exactly. So, and that's exactly where I wanted to go, right? That we have the mind-body connection, and then that's connection to the food. And you've even started to go into the physiology piece of it, which we geek out on the science. So I love that you went there.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you also explain or, walk us through the brain science of it too, in terms of animal brain, social context, fuel, because that leads us into this whole concept of the conversations we have with ourselves and what that's doing.
Yeah. So I love that because, something that I say all the time, which this is why you're asking me this question, is you're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context, surviving on food.
Say that one more time for everybody.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack. So you're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context, surviving on food. So we need to unpack that in order for you to have any idea what is going on here ultimately. And so, all right, you're a spiritual being. And what that means is ultimately you're a system of energy. Whether you are a really intuitive, spiritual person and you are all the way on the side of like all the woo-woo, you're a spiritual being, or you can just understand that the way your nervous system works is the reason that your brain can conceptualize the words that I'm saying right now is because there are electromagnetic pulses going through your brain. The synapses firing in your brain, that's electricity. So no matter how we get there from a really scientific or a really spiritual perspective, you are a system of energy. That's what that means. There are parts of you, the human, that you cannot see or touch or track or weigh or measure, like your thoughts and your feelings, your beliefs, your values, your opinions. There are parts of you that are not visible to us or tangible. So we need to just take that into the conversation. You are in physical form. So you are a spiritual being having a physical experience. You are in physical form. That's how you are here in your meat suit in this form, on earth. That's what you are as a human being. You're in physical form, but you're way more than your physical. You're spiritual and you're physical. Okay. But now we have to complicate things. You have an animal brain. The reason that this is important is because there is a part of the brain that filters everything through either safety or danger. It is only ever trying to keep you alive. It doesn't know if you're happy. It doesn't know if you're healthy. It doesn't know if you're wealthy and successful. It doesn't know or care about those things. The only thing that it cares about is, are you safe or are you in danger? And the reason that this matters is because everything that you do is filtered through this system. And so now you take this animal brain and you're existing in a social context. So what does that mean for us specifically around food and eating and our bodies? Well, a lot of us learned growing up, and this is appropriate and inevitable, there's no way around it, 0 to 5 years old, 0 to 7 years old, you are learning things and you are not critically thinking. You're not challenging them. You're not questioning them, nor should you. You're 5 years old. You need to be taught how the world works. But part of that is that we also get taught how to be. How am I supposed to look? Who am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to sound? What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to wear? What size should my body be? And the tricky thing about an animal brain in a social context is that your animal brain is taking all of this social messaging, the socialization process, and filtering it into messages of safety or danger. So you and your human thinking brain are thinking, well, if I'm, for example, thin, it's good. And if I'm fat, it's bad. You might be thinking that all the way on the surface. But what it filters into ultimately is feeling like if I'm thin, I am safe. And if I'm fat, I'm in danger. And that's why for a lot of people, body image can feel like life or death. It doesn't just feel like a minor inconvenience. It feels like it can take over your entire life. And that's why. So we need to talk about this context of what it even is to be a human being navigating the human experience, because there are very valid reasons that it feels the way that it feels. So that's the mind-body connection, again, in a really general kind of simplified way as it relates to this. And then we can talk about like, what does that mean and how does that translate and, what comes of that? Does that make sense so far?
Totally. And the thing that's occurring to me, and I'm like, do I even say this seconds before we take a break? But I'm going to say it anyway, because what you were just saying of thin is safe, going back to, I guess, trigger warning, right? Going back to your conversation about trauma, there is also an experience of big T trauma where then thin becomes unsafe and a bigger body is safe. So just adding layers of complexity to it all.
Yeah.
We're going to let that sink in while we pause to highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Layered Jewelry for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. The modern woman is multifaceted, taking on many important roles in the various aspects of her life. Inspired by her own multi-layered life as a busy mom, trendsetter, entrepreneur, and influencer, Amber Ridinger McLaughlin set out to create a line of luxury jewelry that lets women create their unique style and celebrate their own beautiful layers. Layered is luxurious and affordable, the perfect combination for the modern woman. Layered allows you to mix, match, stack, and layer pieces that make you feel empowered and beautiful. Each piece is handcrafted to be unique and exquisite just for you. So I don't know about you, but I feel differently when I put jewelry on in my day, right? We're not alone. Okay, so Layered makes it so easy. They have great options for everyday, plus more special pieces, right? Nothing really breaks the bank, though. I love the Justine paperclip bracelet. It's just $66.50. The Candace tennis bracelet is $149.95. I'm a big ring person. Layered has stacking and statement rings that start at just $46.95. All these prices also are before your 10% off and free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. Simply text the word LAYERED, LAYERED, to 833-801-0500. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word LAYERED, LAYERED, to 833-801-0500 to get this handcrafted, luxurious yet affordable jewelry at 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Lisa, I want to look at some specific examples so that we can see this in action and help it start to make sense as far as how to shift these conversations and what to do given this awareness of the mind-body-food connection. So, thinking about this in terms of the conversation we have with ourselves, I'm thinking go with the example of looking in the mirror. Many people would say, I feel like crap. I don't like what I see. Maybe they start to say things to themselves, right? I'm curious, what do you hear people say to themselves and how do we want to shift that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to support anyone who's listening to this and integrating it, what I want you to consider is kind of what I was saying earlier about what happens in your brain, whether you're conscious of it or not, when you start to feel uncomfortable. When you start to feel uncomfortable, either physically or emotionally, we want to remember that your brain, wired for survival, is also designed to keep you away from discomfort. And so when you start feeling uncomfortable, and it could be the trigger of looking in the mirror that makes you uncomfortable, your brain is automatically going to start reacting as though you are unsafe. And so what starts happening, and the power that you have to start shifting that experience, is first you want to realize that you're having the reaction that you're having. So think about it again from the mind-body perspective. If I look in the mirror and I'm uncomfortable emotionally about what I'm seeing, I'm going to notice some of the physiological reaction to that because my brain now perceives that as a threat, perceives that as a danger signal. I'm going to start noticing that like there's a shortness of breath. The energy in my body is speeding up. Maybe I'm jumping into my mind and I'm having a lot of thoughts. I start ruminating. I start dissociating. Whatever it is, it's going to be, right, the reaction as though there's a saber-toothed tiger in the room. There's not a saber-toothed tiger in the room. It's just you're having an emotional reaction to your reflection, which is valid. I'm not saying you're being dramatic. I'm just explaining kind of like what's happening. And we all know how this goes, right? So what you can do is, like I said, just start by noticing. You can start by noticing like, whoa, I am having a really big reaction to my experience and my reflection right now. It doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make me wrong. You definitely do not want to make it worse by shaming and blaming and judging yourself. Absolutely not. You're just noticing. And that's the first step because a lot of us, again, are not present and aware in that moment. We jump up into our mind. We start thinking. We start analyzing, right? How do I lose the weight? How do I make it different? How do I get out of my body? None of that is supporting you in actually being in your body. It's actually taking you out of the present moment. So what we need to really do fundamentally on the root level to address it is to shift you out of the energy of fear and danger and back into the embodiment of safety and presence. And so that's what we want to do. And we can do that in a few ways, which is one, start by focusing on your breath. So usually what happens, the breath is the connection between the mind and body. And we have a lot of power here because when you start getting really stressed out, your breath will become shorter. You might hold your breath. That's something that I do when I get really stressed out. I hold my breath. I just stop breathing, right? And so then if you also are able to notice that and catch that in real time and start breathing regularly and slow your breath down, what you are doing by doing that is communicating to your brain that you are safe. You cannot be exhaling out your nose for 8 seconds while you're simultaneously running from a tiger. You can only be in the stress response or the stress relief response at any given point. So if you can access and harness your breath in that moment of panic or reaction or fear, whatever comes up for you when you are, for example, looking in the mirror, and again, connect with that and slow it down. That's one way to very directly shift your embodied experience of what that's like for you. And you might notice in doing so that you start feeling really emotional. And that's really normal because instead of kind of fueling the fire with more fear and panic and stress and tension, you're actually slowing down to feel what you're feeling, which is, wow, I feel really upset about this. I feel really scared about this. I feel really ashamed of this. Whatever comes up for you, it starts with you actually slowing your system down to remember the mantra that I'm saying all the time. You are uncomfortable. You're not unsafe. Because your brain is going to equate uncomfortable with unsafe. And it is your power and ultimately your responsibility as a conscious human adult listening to this conversation right now to really catch yourself and notice, okay, I am uncomfortable. I'm not unsafe. It's my reflection in the mirror. It's not a saber-toothed tiger. If I can just slow down and be here, it's not going to immediately make you emotionally comfortable, but it is going to change the nervous system reaction that you're having so that you can actually be present in your body. So one way to do it is the breath, but another really powerful way, if that's really challenging, is coming to your senses. So just noticing, it's really a mindfulness activity. What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting, feeling? What is around you? You can even just like draw your awareness. I do this sometimes with people. Just notice what's in the room around you. What colors do you see? What textures do you notice? Can you just be in the room where you are right now? And that will also, again, support you in feeling safe. Not always comfortable, but safe is the goal. So from the mind-body perspective, that's kind of the root of what we want to address. Does that make sense?
Yes. And it's also making me think of, I can't remember the details of this study, but the things we say to ourselves about the food we're eating.
Yes.
Like when we say, oh, this is going right to my hips. It made me think of, and I can't remember the details of the study, but there was a study where people ate the same things. Some people were told this is a really nutritious choice. And some people were told, like when we say to ourselves, oh, this is going to go right to your hips. Like, I don't remember the actual language of the study. And what happened in the body was completely physiologically different based on the words around the food.
Yes.
You know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah. The one that I'm familiar with is like they did like a smoothie or something. And so like one group,
it was like a milkshake or something.
Yeah. It was like one group was told that it was like a healthy protein shake or something. And then the other group was told it was like a really decadent milkshake. And they had two completely different experiences of it. And that, again, like this is the power of the mind and the mind-body connection. Is if you're eating a food, and this is what I think is really interesting when I work with people who struggle with food emotionally, is that then when we start to pay attention to what we're eating, a lot of people will think like, if I'm eating a salad, let's use that as an example, a lot of people have the association that a salad is a quote unquote diet food. And so what I think is really fascinating is that people will show up to something like a salad with all of this like stress and tension and fear and judgment and shame. And it's like carrying all of this meaning. But what I'm always coaching people around is it's not about what you're doing. It's about the energy with which you're doing it. And similarly, it's not about what you're eating. It's about the energy with which you're eating it. And so if you're showing up to a bowl of vegetables and you're eating it because you hate yourself and you feel like you're bad if you don't, or you have to, or you should, or someone's going to, judge you for not eating it. If you're eating it from all of those places, then you're driven by and embodying the energy of fear, so much so that it feels like the salad is the predator. And like, what is your experience of that going to be? But if you mindfully show up to the same bowl of vegetables and you are aware that this is really supportive for you, this is the only way that you're going to get these micronutrients in today, that you want to hit, the servings of fruits and vegetables that you need to eat just for the purpose of nourishing your body. And this is really a form of self-love and self-care. The bowl of vegetables has not changed. But your mind around it has changed. Your thoughts and your perception of it has changed. And therefore, your experience of it is going to completely change. So a lot of, the work around food is not so much about the actual food. It's about how are you showing up to it and what meaning are you making of it. And that has, again, borne so much from my own experience, because at a certain point, I had to just really focus on not what am I eating, but what am I telling myself about what I'm eating? And tremendous transformation comes from doing that kind of inner work.
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you talked about in terms of social context. And as we think through these tangible pieces of what to do in situations, right? When I was growing up, social context and those cues were very much magazines and TV commercials. I think today it's social media. We talked about the example of standing in front of the mirror, and I'm also thinking the doom scroll, the scrolling that's sort of passive and yet not passive at all, that is happening all throughout our day at different times when we need a break, when we're looking to de-stress, and when we're looking for distraction and all those things. So talk to us a little bit about that moment, or those moments, I should say.
Yeah, it's a really good, very important question, because again, I see things through the lens of the mind-body connection and perspective. And all of those things, especially if you are scrolling through and constantly seeing images that make you feel less than, and your feed, for example, on Instagram are full of people that don't look anything like you and make you feel like you are not good enough and you are not safe to be here the way that you are in your body as it is. If the message that you're getting all day long is that you are different, you are other, you are defective, you are broken, or that's the meaning that you are making of certain things that you're seeing online, right? Like you might just see someone in their own natural body and they're not shaming you. But if your perception of that is, I don't look as good as this person, and therefore I am not as lovable and worthy and valuable. And that's what the mind is always doing. We're making meaning of stuff, whether we know it or not, or whether we mean to or not. But the important thing about that is if that's your experience all day, every day, you really want to consider that this is like an injection of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Like it is an injection of fearful danger energy. And then what happens for a lot of us, and I want to be really clear about sharing that stress is not the problem. Stress is not bad. We are designed to be stressed out. We're hunter-gatherers by nature. We would go out and we would get stressed. It's fine. We are designed for that. The problem is not stress. The problem is chronic stress. And that's what things like this create for a lot of us, is we're not living through acute stressors anymore where we would leave the cave and go kill an animal to survive on it and then recover and restore and rejuvenate. That's not what's happening. When we live with the little computer in our pocket and we are scrolling all day, every day, and we're seeing bodies and we're seeing diets and we're seeing all these posts that make us feel a lot of things, it's a chronic stress. It's like an all day, every day stress. And that is really harmful because A, now we have a toxic level of cortisol, which we're not designed for, but B, because then we need to cope with it somehow. And this is where, for a lot of people, emotional eating or stress eating comes in. And a lot of people are like, I don't even know what I'm so stressed about. I don't even know what I'm so emotional about. We're so not connected to it because it's kind of like a slow drip all day, every day of another ding on the phone, another notification, another post, another thing. And that's where, again, the mind-body connection comes in. That is like, if our stress levels are just, overflowing, we've got to cope with it somehow. And for some people, that's food. For some people, it's alcohol. For some people, it's drugs and sex and cigarettes and whatever else. We've all got our thing. And that's kind of how it shows up and what we want to pay attention to.
I love it. I think everybody has a bit of homework in a healthful way. Frankly, just starting to observe where we are and what we're noticing and paying more attention.
Yep.
Final thought to wrap this up before we do our rapid fire off topic questions.
Yeah. My final thought, I think, is always self-compassion and being kind to yourself. Because like I said before, you're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context, surviving on food. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much we are juggling and navigating mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, environmentally, physically, physiologically, every moment of every day. And so I like to just share it with people. If you feel sometimes like being a human is really a lot and really hard and overwhelming, and also you notice that it affects the way that you show up around food, of course, you're not broken. It's not your fault. You're not a problem. You are not defective. You have a mind, body, soul system. And the really good news is that it's operating exactly as it's supposed to. So there is a lot of hope for healing and peace and freedom. I'm here to help you with it, but definitely do not blame yourself. It is not your fault.
1,000%. All right. Our rapid fire off topic questions I ask every expert who joins us. You ready?
I'm so nervous.
Don't be. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week? Not that anything's really naughty, but the way I like to think of it is like the salad and fries have your.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so yesterday I was so excited to get up and go to the gym for the first time in a couple days. And I was all prepared. I made my cup of coffee and then I checked in with my body and I was like, oh my God, I am so tired. And I abandoned my whole plan to go back to the gym and I crawled right back into bed. And that is the healthiest thing that I've done for myself in a while. I did not want to do it, but I'm very proud that I did. The naughtiest thing, I went out a couple times last weekend and I had a bunch of tequila sodas.
I mean, we're living life. If you weren't the founder of Out of the Cave, what would you do?
Cuddle with my cat all day long.
Perfect. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or give us a fiction book.
I have to say Harry Potter, probably. Like forever through and through a Harry Potter girl.
Okay. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Dementia.
That was a fast answer.
I have a connection.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Oh, this changes all the time because I think about this. I love the idea of like apparating, like just being able to like snap my fingers and be in another location. What is it called?
Teleport.
Teleport. Thank you.
Yeah. What's your biggest pet peeve?
When people are walking down the street with an open umbrella, even though it already stopped raining.
That's such a New York answer.
I was just going to say, like, I live in New York and it's like the city streets are not big enough for all of us to have open umbrellas when it's not even raining. So that really gets me.
All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Out of the cave. I really think the mind-body approach is it, but I'm biased.
Aren't we all? Lisa Schlosberg, thank you for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, find all the things you're up to.
Yes. Okay. So the best place to find me is probably Instagram, lisa.schlossberg. You can visit my website, outofthecave.health. You can find the Out of the Cave podcast on Spotify and Apple. I have a group coaching program coming up in September. I believe the week after this comes out is also going to be my in-person retreat at the Omega Institute in New York. So if you want to work with me in person or virtually, those are the best places to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time and expertise and the way you explain things to make it approachable for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, friends. On Friday, in this week's Nutrition Nugget bite-sized bonus episode, we're talking about jeffing. Have you seen this on the internet?
No.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's related to exercise and activity. You've potentially been done this before without realizing it. So what is it? Is it recommended for all of us? We'll discuss it on Friday in this week's bite-sized bonus episode. Be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live on Friday. Well, as always, everybody, I'm Jenn Trepeck, your health coach and host. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I truly love hearing from you, your ideas, your takeaways, your questions, all the things. It's also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Lisa Schlosberg, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. What a blast.
Absolutely. And friends, if you are not already, join the Happy Healthy Hub. You'll go to asaladwithasideofries.com/membership. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and above all, your health. On top of this week's episode in full video with behind-the-scenes content, you'll get the 24/7 access to Ask Me Anything, and your recipe this week is for 20-minute turkey and peppers. So until next week, consider that even more stressful than the traffic that made you late or your endless to-do list might be the conversation you're having with yourself. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.